Your neighbors are going to walk past your yard this July and stop. Not because you worked harder than they did, not because you spent more money than they did, but because you made one smart decision this April that they did not. 11 perennials, 1 month, a yard so full, so alive, and so covered in color that people slow down just to look at it. These plants spread on their own. They come back every single year. They multiply for free while you are sitting on your porch. And if you miss April, you lose the entire season. So let us not waste another second. Here is exactly what to plant right now. Plant 1, creeping phlox. Most people have never planted this, and the first time they see a neighbor's slope completely buried in color, they realize exactly what they have been missing. That is what creeping phlox does. Picture a waterfall, but instead of water, it is bright pink, pure white, deep magenta, and soft lavender pouring down a slope, over a wall, or along the edge of a pathway. That is creeping phlox in April and May. And unlike a lot of spring bloomers that give you a short show and disappear, the foliage stays evergreen through the year. Even in winter, your garden keeps structure. Phlox subulata is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, which covers most of the continental United States. It spreads outward fast through trailing stems that root anywhere they touch the soil. No help from you, no special intervention. It just grows. And here is the part most gardening videos never tell you. A slope covered in creeping phlox does not need mowing anymore. There is a reason municipalities use it on embankments and difficult slopes. It locks soil in place, helps reduce erosion, and replaces maintenance with ground cover. That ugly sloped section of your yard that is hard to mow and harder to love, this plant was built for it. Plant it in full sun to light shade in well-draining soil. After it blooms, shear it back lightly. That one trim keeps it dense, encourages stronger spread next year, and stops the center from getting woody. Tell me in the comments right now, do you have a slope, a bare patch, or a spot in your yard that has defeated every plant you have tried? Because I promise you, multiple answers to that problem are on this list today. Plant 2, Daylily. This plant grows in Alaska. It grows in Florida. It grows in the Arizona desert and in Minnesota frost. If that does not tell you how unstoppable it is, nothing will. Hemeroculus, the daylily, is hardy in USDA zones 1 through 11. That means there is almost no yard in America where this plant will not grow, spread, and come back year after year without complaining. And the color range is enormous. There are tens of thousands of registered cultivars in shades of deep burgundy, soft peach, bright orange, pale lemon, creamy white, purple, vivid red, and countless bicolors. When you plant a mix of early, mid-season, and late varieties together, you can get waves of bloom from early summer into mid-fall. And every few years you divide the clump. That is where daylily turns into something even better than a perennial. It turns into an investment. One original plant eventually becomes a large clump that can yield multiple free divisions. What started as one nursery purchase becomes a long-term supply of plants for other borders, pathway edges, or anywhere else you want color. And here is what almost nobody mentions. Mass-planted daylilies shade the ground so thoroughly that weeds struggle to establish underneath them. That is one reason they are used on roadsides and in large, low-maintenance plantings. A weedy border can be solved with one good April decision. There is one warning you do need to take seriously. Daylilies are acutely toxic to cats, every part of the plant, including the pollen. If cats spend time in your garden, skip this one or keep it well away from them. 2 plants in, and I want to ask you something. How much money have you spent in the last 3 springs replacing things that died? If this channel saves you even one wasted trip to the garden center, subscribing is the smartest free decision you make today. Plant 3, bee balm. If you have never had a hummingbird hover 2 feet from your face while you sat in your own backyard, this is the plant that makes that happen. And once it happens once, you will never garden without bee balm again. Monara de Didima is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. The flowers are spiky, vivid, and unlike almost anything else in the garden. Bright red, rich purple, deep pink, and white. And that unusual tubular flower shape is not just beautiful, It is ideal for hummingbird feeding. Their beaks fit perfectly. They come back again and again, and the plant draws far more than just hummingbirds. Monarchs visit it, swallowtails visit it, bumblebees work it constantly. One planting of bee balm supports more wildlife than most people realize. And here is the part that surprises people. Bee balm is in the mint family. The leaves are edible and can be brewed into a fragrant tea with a flavor that reminds many people of bergamot, the same note associated with Earl Grey. So you are not just growing a wildlife plant, you are growing a useful kitchen herb at the same time. It spreads through underground rhizomes and can fill a generous space within 2 or 3 seasons. For best results, choose mildew-resistant cultivars. Jacob Klein is one of the strongest reds. Raspberry wine is a great rich pink. Those improved varieties perform better and ask for less maintenance than older forms. And picture this for a second, a hummingbird hanging in front of bee balm on a summer morning. That is what the right plant gives you. Not just color, not just coverage. A moment. If this video is already giving you that kind of value, subscribe right now. Plant 4, Black-Eyed Susan. Black-Eyed Susan grows wild along American roadsides from Maine to Texas. You have driven past it your whole life, and people still walk into garden centers every spring and pay for things that are less durable, less useful, and less generous. That stops right now. Rudbeckia fulgida Goldsturm is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. Golden yellow petals radiate around a dark center, so rich it looks almost black. The contrast is vivid and unmistakable. And what makes it exceptional is not just the color, it is the bloom season. It flowers from July through October, at exactly the point in the year when many gardens begin to look tired, dry, and finished. When other people's borders are fading in August, Goldsturm is still going. And this is not just marketing. This cultivar is widely recognized for blooming longer and more heavily than standard forms, which is exactly why it shows up again and again in serious plantings. It spreads 2 ways. Underground rhizomes quietly widen the clump each season, and the seed heads drop seeds that create new plants the following spring. You plant one in April. By year 2, the clump is larger. By year 3, you have a real colony. And if you leave the seed heads standing through winter, they become food for goldfinches, sparrows, and other birds during the coldest part of the year. That means your garden is not just ornamental. It is feeding wildlife while other people are filling plastic feeders. As a North American native, Black-Eyed Susan also needs far less pampering than many imported ornamentals. Less water, less fertilizer, less attention. It was built for this continent. Plant 5, Yarrow. This plant grows in gravel. It grows in hard, dry ground. It grows where you have already killed 3 other plants and given up, and then it blooms for months anyway. Achillea millefolium is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. It produces flat-topped flower clusters in yellow, white, pink, coral, and deep red, depending on the variety. The foliage is feathery, silvery green, and strongly aromatic. That scent is one reason deer and rabbits usually ignore it, and Yarrow does something else that makes it far more valuable than most people realize. It helps suppress weeds and attracts beneficial insects. Its flowers draw hoverflies, lacewings, and parasitic wasps, insects that help reduce the soft-bodied pests attacking other plants in your garden. So while Yarrow is blooming, it is doing more than decorating a border. It is helping manage the system around it. The biggest mistake people make with Yarrow is giving it rich soil. That makes it floppy and weak. Poor, dry, neglected soil makes it stronger. Plant it in your worst spot. That is not settling. That is matching the plant to the place where it performs best. It spreads through rhizomes and also self-seeds, which makes it one of the most cost-effective ways to cover a bare area fast. And every established clump can be divided into multiple free plants in a single morning. Plant 6, Catmint. If deer have destroyed your garden 2 years in a row and you are officially done being patient, this is the plant you needed to hear about before you bought anything else. Nepeta ex Faseni Walker's Low is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. Lavender blue flowers rise above silvery gray aromatic foliage from late spring through midsummer. It grows into a soft mound about 2 feet tall and spills beautifully over path edges, driveways, and border fronts. And one of its best qualities is that deer usually avoid it before they even try it. They judge plants heavily by scent, and catmint's aromatic oils make it unappealing from the start. Unlike spray repellents that need constant reapplying, this plant is its own repellent. And if you cut it back by half after the first flush of bloom, it comes back stronger and gives you a second wave of flowers later in the season. That is 2 bloom periods from one plant, with almost no extra effort. From a design standpoint, catmint is also one of the most versatile plants on this list. It softens hard edges, pairs beautifully with roses, grasses, and cone flowers, and makes the front of a border look settled and intentional. The pollinator activity on catmint is remarkable too. Bees work it continuously, and that added pollinator presence can help the rest of your garden become more productive. Plant 7, hardy geranium, also called crane's bill. This is one of the most underused spreading perennials in home gardens. Experienced gardeners know it well. Beginners often have never heard of it. And that gap is exactly why it belongs on this list. This is not the annual geranium you see at grocery stores and gas stations every spring. That plant dies at the first hard frost and has to be replaced every year. Hardy geranium is different. It is a true perennial. It returns, it spreads, it divides into more plants over time. Geranium cantabrigiense is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. Look for cultivars like Biocovo for soft white flowers with a pink blush, or Carmina for a deeper rose-pink tone. Both spread reliably without becoming the kind of problem plant that takes over a bed. The foliage forms a low mound, stays attractive for a long stretch of the season, and often turns bronzy red in fall as temperatures cool. It blooms in late spring and into midsummer, and in zone 6 and warmer, it can remain semi-evergreen, which means it continues giving structure when many other plants have already gone dormant. And here is where hardy geranium becomes especially valuable. It handles dry shade. That means the difficult ground under large trees, the places where roots compete for every drop of moisture, the dark corners where most flowering plants struggle. Hardy geranium performs there better than almost anything else of comparable beauty. And if you shear it back after the first main bloom, it usually responds with fresh, new foliage, and in many seasons a second round of flowers. One hard cut, fresh growth. More value from the same plant. Plant 8, garden phlox. There is one plant on this list that you will often smell before you see it on a warm summer evening, standing near the back door or sitting outside as the light starts to soften. You catch the fragrance first. That moment is why gardeners have kept planting garden phlox for generations. Phlox paniculata is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. It produces large, rounded flower clusters in pink, purple, red, white, and beautiful bicolors. It blooms in mid to late summer, exactly when many spring and early summer performers have already finished, and the garden needs something strong to step forward. Garden phlox fills that gap with both color and fragrance, and the fragrance matters. It changes how the garden feels. It reaches outdoor seating areas. It drifts through open windows. It makes the summer garden feel richer and more alive. Now, the reason some gardeners hesitate with phlox is powdery mildew. But that problem is largely manageable if you do 2 things right. First, choose mildew-resistant cultivars. Second, give the plant proper spacing and air circulation, and water at the base instead of overhead. Those decisions make an enormous difference. Phlox also makes an excellent cut flower. Bring a few stems inside, and the fragrance can fill a room for days. So with one plant, you get a summer border showpiece, and something worth cutting for the house. Plant 9, goldenrod. For decades, millions of Americans have blamed goldenrod for their fall allergies. They were wrong, completely wrong. Goldenrod blooms at the same time as ragweed, and ragweed is the actual culprit. Ragweed produces lightweight, airborne pollen. Goldenrod produces heavy, sticky pollen carried by insects. Goldenrod is not the reason people are sneezing in fall. It just happened to be standing nearby when ragweed got to work, and that misunderstanding kept one of the most valuable native late-season plants out of home gardens for far too long. Solidago rugosa fireworks is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9. The name fits. Its stems arch outward in graceful sprays covered in tiny golden flowers, giving the whole plant the look of fireworks frozen in mid-air. It blooms from late summer into fall, precisely when most gardens are running out of color. That timing makes it one of the most strategically valuable plants on this list. In September and October, options become thinner. Goldenrod steps in right when the garden needs help most, and ecologically, it is one of the best plants you can grow. It supports a huge range of native bees, butterflies, and beneficial insects. Planting goldenrod is one of the most direct ways a home gardener can support the local pollinator network that the rest of the landscape depends on. It spreads through rhizomes, so in a naturalized area you can let it run. In a formal bed, divide it every few years to keep it contained and vigorous. And yes, every division is another free plant. Plant 10, lamb's ear. Stachys byzantina is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. And the first thing anyone notices about it is texture. The leaves are covered in a dense layer of soft, silvery fuzz that feels exactly like its name suggests. Lamb's ear. People stop and touch it. Children do. Adults do. Visitors who know nothing about plants do. It creates a physical memory, and very few perennials can do that. But beyond texture, lamb's ear is also a powerful design plant. The silver-white foliage makes nearby colors look better. It deepens purples, softens pinks, and makes stronger tones look cleaner and more vivid. Landscape designers use plants like this because they unify a border. They make everything around them look more intentional. And lamb's ear is drought-tolerant for a reason. That hairy leaf surface reduces moisture loss, which helps the plant stay strong in heat and dry weather. It spreads steadily, fills gaps, helps suppress weeds, and in warmer zones can remain semi-evergreen through winter, keeping silver structure low to the ground, while much of the rest of the garden has gone bare. Use it along pathways, between taller perennials, or as a ribbon that ties different color groups together. It asks for very little and gives a lot back visually. 10 plants in, and if you have made it this far, you are not casually watching. You want a garden that actually works. That is exactly what this channel is for. Plant 11, New England Aster. Every plant on this list earns its place from spring through summer. This one earns its place in October. When nights turn cold, when most of the garden is slowing down, when color is becoming scarce, New England Aster explodes. Symphyotrichum novae Angliae is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8. It produces daisy-like flowers in violet, purple, lavender, pink, and white with glowing yellow centers. And the remarkable thing about asters in fall is that the color does not wash out. It deepens. It becomes more intense against the gold and brown tones of the season around it. That makes asters one of the most valuable late-season plants in the whole garden. They are also among the last dependable nectar sources available to monarchs and other pollinators before the season fully closes. If you want the best performance, pinch the stems back in late spring, and then again in early summer. Those two cuts create a fuller plant, more branching, and a much heavier bloom display in fall. Asters spread through rhizomes and self-seed reliably, so every few years you can divide them and create even more plants from the original clump. And when butterflies are still landing on those flowers in cool autumn light, that is the moment the whole list makes sense. Now step back and look at what these 11 plants actually do. They solve slopes. They suppress weeds. They soften borders. They feed pollinators. They bring hummingbirds, butterflies, and birds into the yard. They spread, return, and multiply for free. And that is exactly why April matters so much. Because what happens in April happens underground first. Soil is warming, but summer stress has not arrived yet. That gives perennial roots time to establish before the hardest part of the season begins. Miss that window, and the plant may still survive, but it does not get the same head start. That is why planting in April is not just a preference, it is an advantage. Before you plant anything, remember 3 things. First, fix drainage. Poor drainage causes more long-term perennial problems than drought does. Second, divide mature clumps every few years. Division is free money in plant form. Third, leave seed heads standing through fall and winter whenever possible. They feed birds, shelter beneficial insects, and help your garden reseed itself. You just spent time learning 11 plants that can change what your yard looks like by July and keep improving it for years after that. That is not just a list, that is a plan. If this gave you even 1 plant you are putting in the ground this April, subscribe right now, because the next video goes just as deep. And before you go, drop 1 comment below. Tell me which plant from this list you are planting first this April, and tell me what zone or state you are gardening in. I read every single comment. This is your yard. This is your season. April is open right now. Go plant something.